My ex-fiancée once told me I'd never land anyone like her after she cheated on me. Fast forward a year, and here I am, dating a model who had a crush on me since high school. The other day, I was scrolling through Reddit and stumbled on a post about some poor guy whose girlfriend was cheating on him without even trying to hide it. She acted like it was no big deal, just brutally honest about it. It was wild, and it instantly reminded me of my own experience with my ex. I haven't shared this story with a lot of people, mostly because it's kind of long and honestly, it wasn't exactly a fun memory when it happened. But after reading that Reddit post, I figured, you know what? Maybe it's time to put it out there. Just a heads up, this all went down about 2 years ago. I met my ex, let's call her Madison, through a dating app. Not one of those apps where everyone's just looking for a quick hookup either. This one was supposed to be more about finding real relationships. At the time, I was 35 and she was 30. We matched, started chatting, and hit it off almost immediately. It's tough to put into words, but it felt like we just clicked right away. We had the same kind of humor, liked the same things, and could talk for hours without it ever feeling forced or boring. It honestly felt like a breath of fresh air. After a few weeks of messaging and late-night phone calls, I finally worked up the nerve to ask her out on a real date. Not gonna lie, I was pretty nervous. She was gorgeous, and not just regular pretty, but the kind of beautiful that actually makes you a little dizzy when you look at her. Now, I'm not saying I'm some hideous goblin or anything. I think I'm a decent-looking guy, but Madison? She was way out of my league. I even told myself back then that I probably shouldn't get too serious because women like her usually have a ton of options. It sounds weird, but dating someone that attractive can come with its own set of problems. It's like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't want to end up heartbroken just because you aim too high, you know? Anyway, she agreed to go out with me, and man, that first date was incredible. That first date just confirmed everything I had felt during our online conversations. It was like all those good vibes were real, not just screen deep. After that night, we started seeing each other a lot more often, and pretty quickly, things got official between us. One thing that kept buzzing around in the back of my mind, though, was how much attention she got from other guys. Sometimes she would casually mention it, even when we were hanging out together. There'd be times when a guy would blatantly hit on her right in front of me, or she'd show me random messages she got on social media from dudes trying their luck. At first, I honestly wasn't bothered. I trusted her. I truly believed she wasn't interested in anyone else and was actually into me. Yeah, maybe that sounds naive, but that's where my head was at back then. I was just soaking up being with her and trying not to be that jealous, insecure boyfriend nobody likes. Things were rolling along great, really great, except for this one little thing that kept tugging at the back of my brain. One night, we were having one of those deep, late-night talks where you jump from topic to topic without any real plan. Somehow, we landed on the idea of hall passes. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a fun, imaginary deal where you and your partner each pick a celebrity you could sleep with. No questions asked, no consequences. It's usually a silly, harmless kind of game, but sometimes it digs up some real feelings you didn't expect. What caught me off guard was that she was the one who brought it up. Normally, I'm the one throwing out goofy conversation starters like that. She told me her hall pass would be Dan Reynolds, you know, the lead singer of Imagine Dragons. And fair enough, he's a good-looking dude. Can't really argue with that. But then, she said something that really stuck with me. She smirked a little and said, I don't think there are many celebrities who'd actually turn me down. Like she was completely serious. Now, I'd always known she was stunning. That was obvious from the start. But hearing her say it out loud like that just didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just confidence. It felt like she genuinely believed she could have any guy she wanted. And that made me uncomfortable. What really threw me was that it didn't match the version of her I thought I knew. For all her looks, she'd always come off as down-to-earth, easy to talk to. That comment, though, it felt cocky, and it unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I didn't say anything at the time, just laughed it off, and we moved on to another topic. But her words stuck with me. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Eventually, the feeling faded, and everything seemed to go back to normal, at least on the surface. But deep down, I didn't forget. And honestly, not long after that hall pass conversation, I started noticing a shift. At first, it was barely noticeable, just small things. But the longer it went on, the more obvious it became. She started coming home later than she used to. Before, she was pretty consistent, walking through the door around 6:20 p.m., almost like clockwork. Then it started creeping later, 7:15, sometimes 7:30, and every now and then even later than that. The reason she gave? They were weak. Stuff like, oh, I lost track of time, or I bumped into a friend and we got to talking. It felt off because she used to be the kind of person who gave you a full play-by-play of her day. If she was running behind because of work, she'd tell me what project held her up, who she talked to, all the little details. No, it was just these vague, half-hearted explanations that didn't add up. And on top of all that, she started getting really irritable. If I even asked why she was late, she'd snap at me like I was accusing her of something. She'd get defensive real fast, saying I was being too controlling or that I didn't trust her. I'm not the type who likes to pick fights, especially when someone's already in a bad mood, so most of the time, I just let it go. But the late nights kept happening, and the excuses stayed just as flimsy. That little nagging voice in the back of my mind kept getting louder, telling me something wasn't right. I kept trying to brush it off, but it got harder and harder to ignore. The tension kept building, with more quiet arguments and her constant denials. Finally, one night, I decided to just ask her straight out. I said something like, "Hey, is everything all right? You seem different lately." Of course, she denied it immediately. Gave me the usual line, "No, everything's fine. I'm just stressed out with work." Same old excuse. And honestly, I wanted to believe her. I really did. A few more days went by, and nothing changed. Same late nights. Same cold shoulder. Same half-hearted reasons. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay anymore. So, I brought it up again, told her that her behavior didn't feel right and that I was genuinely worried. This time, she didn't snap. She actually seemed to get it. She apologized and said it was all just work stress and exhaustion, swearing it wasn't anything personal. I heard her. I understood the words. But deep down, I just couldn't bring myself to believe her. After that talk, things seemed to get better, at least on the surface. She acted more open, more chatty. If she came home late, she'd actually tell me stories about where she'd been and what she'd been up to. But something about it all just felt off. It wasn't what she said exactly, it was how she said it. The way she skimmed over the details, the way she wouldn't quite look me in the eye. I remember one night in particular. She came home late again and told me this story about bumping into an old coworker and grabbing some drinks together. And right then and there, it just hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew she was lying. I could feel it in my bones. I can't even explain it properly. It wasn't one big obvious thing. It was just an overwhelming gut feeling that she wasn't telling me the whole story, that she was hiding something big. And that's when the thought first really clicked into place. She was cheating on me. Not just a little flirtation, not some innocent misunderstanding, a full-blown affair. And I knew right then that there was no way I could just sit back and ignore it. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I had to find out the truth, no matter what it took. Because by that point, the woman standing in front of me wasn't the same one I'd fallen for. Something had changed, and it was too big, too real, to keep sweeping under the rug. The plan. So there I was, sitting there, fully convinced my girlfriend was cheating on me. My first instinct? I figured I needed to get a look at her phone. I mean, that's where all the proof would be, right? Texts, emails, DMs, everything. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it just wasn't going to happen. First off, she was glued to that thing 24/7. There was no way I could get my hands on it long enough to actually dig through anything without her noticing. And even if I did somehow manage it, I'm not exactly some tech wizard. I wouldn't even know where to start looking, and let's be real, she probably would have already wiped anything incriminating. Besides, I didn't just want some half-baked suspicion off a sketchy text message. I needed real, solid proof. I didn't want to just accuse her and then get gaslit into thinking I was crazy. I wanted to catch her red-handed, no doubts, no what-ifs. That's when I decided to take a different route. I was going to hire a private investigator. Yeah, I know, sounds like something straight out of a movie. But honestly, I was desperate. I needed answers, and I wanted someone who actually knew what they were doing to help me get them. I wanted to know exactly who this other guy was, and where they were meeting up. So, I hopped online, started searching for private investigators in my area, and found one with a bunch of good reviews. I gave them a call and set up a meeting. Man, I still remember how nervous I was walking into that office. It felt like I was waving the white flag. I sat down with the private investigator, this guy who looked like he'd seen every dirty secret in the book, and laid it all out for him. I told him everything, start to finish. From that weird hallway conversation to the late nights and all the half-baked excuses. It took a while to get through it all, but he just sat there, calm as could be, nodding along. He didn't judge me, didn't make me feel like some paranoid idiot. He just listened. When I finished, he told me he'd seen cases like mine hundreds of times before. Because her late nights were all over the place, he recommended running surveillance for 2 weeks to cover enough ground, but warned me it wouldn't be cheap. In the end, we agreed on 10 days. I handed over everything he might need, her phone number, her email, where she worked, the whole package. Before I left, he gave me one last piece of advice. Don't reach out unless it's a real emergency. It's gonna be hard, he said, but you need to let me do my job. I agreed, even though I knew it was going to be absolute torture. And man, let me tell you, those 10 days felt like the longest stretch of my entire life. It was brutal, knowing this investigator was out there shadowing my fiancée, possibly gathering proof that would confirm every horrible thing I was afraid of. I felt completely powerless, just sitting there, waiting, imagining every awful scenario you can think of. Trying to focus on anything else was pointless. Work was a disaster. I couldn't sleep. I barely touched my food. And the worst part? All through those 10 days, she kept coming home late like clockwork. 3 different times, she rolled in after 9 p.m., tossing out the same tired, half-baked excuses. Oh, I made last-minute plans with some friends. Or, traffic was just awful tonight. She had no clue that every time she fed me one of those lines, it only made my suspicions even stronger. Each time she walked in late, I'd think, all right, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the night the investigator catches her. Every late night just gave him more chances to get the proof I needed. The truth finally comes out. At last, the 10 days were up. Right on the dot, the investigator called me. He kept it short and to the point, said he had what I was looking for, and asked if I could meet him in person. I didn't hesitate. Yeah, absolutely, I said. This wasn't something I wanted to hear over the phone. After waiting and agonizing for what felt like forever, I needed to look him in the eye and see for myself that it was real. I jumped in my car and headed over, my hands shaking so bad I could barely keep them steady on the steering wheel. My stomach was twisted in knots. When I walked into his office, he was already there, sitting behind his desk with a manila envelope laid out in front of him. He motioned for me to have a seat. Then he asked if I wanted him to just tell me what he found, or if I wanted to open the envelope myself. I told him to tell me first. I figured maybe hearing it straight from him would soften the blow a little, like giving myself a second to brace for impact before the punch landed. He took a deep breath and said it plain and simple. Your suspicions were correct. No sugarcoating it. No dancing around the truth. Then he laid it all out. He'd followed her to an apartment building 3 separate times. She went into the building alone and always left about 2 hours later, but never alone. Each time, she walked out with the same guy. The investigator had even gotten the apartment number and the guy's name. Brent. Obviously, I'm changing his name here. My first gut reaction? I wanted to track this Brent down, and let's just say, I wasn't exactly thinking about sitting down for a friendly chat. But pretty quickly, I realized that wasn't the point. The real betrayal wasn't about him. It was about her. The woman I loved had been lying to me. That's where my focus needed to be. The investigator slid the manila envelope across the desk. I opened it, and there they were. Pictures, clear as day. Photos of her and Brent standing in front of the apartment building, hugging, holding hands, kissing, right there by her car. It was all laid out in black and white, impossible to deny. I felt like I was about to lose it right there in his office. It's one thing to have suspicions, to feel it in your gut, but actually seeing it? That hits on a whole different level. The visual proof, it was crushing. I somehow managed to hold back tears, but it took everything I had. And it wasn't just about her cheating. It was the crushing realization that the life I thought we were building together, the future I had pictured with her, was crumbling to pieces right in front of me. The confrontation. I wasn't sure exactly what my next move should be, but I knew one thing. I needed answers. It was time to confront her. When I got home, I asked her to sit down. No yelling. No throwing things. No screaming match. I kept my voice low and said, "We need to talk." She could tell right away that something was wrong. I didn't even have to say much. She saw it written all over my face. She sat down, and I just laid it all out for her. I told her straight up that I knew about the affair. I told her I had hired a private investigator. I told her I had proof, real proof. At first, she just sat there, stunned, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then she tried to pull herself together, like she was about to brush it all off and pretend nothing had happened. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I kept going, told her exactly what the investigator had found, told her about the apartment building, told her about Brent, told her everything. And she just sat there, silent, no denial, no apology, not even an excuse. She just sat there, soaking it all in like she was watching a movie that didn't have anything to do with her. And the longer I talked, the angrier I got. Her silence was like gasoline on a fire. It felt like she didn't care at all. Like what she'd done didn't even register as a big deal to her. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her I was done. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not playing this game with you. I'm out. And that's when she did something I never saw coming. She laughed. She got up, like she was trying to intimidate me, and launched into this full-blown monologue. You want to leave me? She said, practically laughing. Are you serious? So what if I had a little fun on the side? She went on and on, saying it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything. She admitted she was a cheater, sure, but then she twisted it, asking where I thought I could possibly go from here. Do you really think you'll ever find someone like me again? She said. She actually had the nerve to tell me, after everything, that it should have been obvious all along that she was out of my league. She kept hammering the same point. It was one mistake, and I was really going to throw our whole life away over that? She just kept going, basically trying to make me feel lucky, like I should be grateful she even gave me the time of day, even after cheating. Can you believe that? I was floored. I knew she had a high opinion of herself, sure, but this was next-level arrogance. This wasn't someone trying to apologize. This wasn't someone showing even a shred of remorse. This was someone who truly didn't give a damn. It was like she had decided to just crash and burn full speed ahead. It honestly felt like her dream outcome was for me to sit there, accept that she was too good for me, and let her do whatever the hell she wanted, while I should just feel lucky to be along for the ride. She really, truly believed I wouldn't have the guts to walk away. That's how much she believed her own hype. Her words hit me like a freight train. Before, I'd felt hurt and angry, sure. But this was something else. This was pure, unfiltered rage. I stood up, looked her dead in the eye, and told her exactly how much I hated her. I don't even remember the exact words. It all came pouring out, but it was something close to that. And then I turned around and walked out. No bag. No goodbye. Nothing. I just walked out the door. I couldn't stand being in the same room with her for even one more second. I felt completely gutted, betrayed in a way I hadn't even thought was possible. It was over. The aftermath. That night, I crashed at a cheap motel. There was no way I could go back to the house, not yet. I needed space. I needed to be alone and try to process everything that had just blown my life apart. I laid there in that stiff, uncomfortable bed, staring up at the ceiling, replaying every second of the confrontation over and over in my head. I still couldn't wrap my mind around how she had reacted. It was beyond anything I ever would have expected. The next day, I went back to the house to grab a few things. I figured she'd be at work, but nope, she was there. Her face was puffy, like she'd been crying, but she was trying to act all tough, pretending like nothing was wrong. And then, get this, she actually had the nerve to smirk and say, I knew you'd come back. Like I was just some idiot who threw a little tantrum and then came crawling back, begging for forgiveness. I didn't say a word. I just went inside, grabbed some clothes, my toiletries, and a few essentials. I knew I couldn't pack up everything in one trip, but right then, I didn't care. I just wanted out. Fast. As I headed for the door, I said, I'll be back for the rest of my stuff later. She just stood there, staring at me, looking like she couldn't believe what was happening. Like it honestly never crossed her mind that I'd actually leave her. She didn't say a word, not until I was already halfway out the door. She muttered something under her breath as I was leaving, but honestly, I didn't even bother trying to catch it. At that point, I didn't care. Ever since then, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out why she acted the way she did. And truth be told, I'm still struggling to make sense of it. Maybe she was chasing some kind of validation or excitement she felt like she wasn't getting from me. Maybe she was scared of getting older, scared of slipping into a boring routine. Maybe she saw me as the safe, reliable guy, the cuddly husband type, but deep down, she thought she was too good for me. And because she always believed that, maybe in her mind, cheating wasn't even that big of a deal. Maybe she'd already found a way to justify it long before I ever found out. Who knows? At the end of the day, it's all just me grasping at straws, trying to put some kind of logic to something that just doesn't make sense. The aftermath. After I walked out, she started blowing up my phone. At first, the messages were sarcastic and mocking, like she thought the whole thing was some big joke, like she fully expected me to come crawling back. She really believed I was bluffing, that I wasn't actually going to leave her. But a few days later, I came back to the house with a buddy to grab the rest of my stuff. And when she saw me packing up for good, reality finally seemed to hit her. She looked genuinely stunned. I think that was the moment she realized it was really, truly over. One of the last texts she ever sent me said, I hope you know you'll never find anyone like me again. Seriously? Right after that, I blocked her. I couldn't deal with the drama anymore. It was just too much. Moving on. All right, let's fast forward a little. Breaking up with Madison was a complete mess, and it definitely took me some time to get my feet back under me. But life moves on, right? A few months later, my high school reunion came up. At first, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to go, but a bunch of my old friends talked me into it. And honestly, I'm glad they did. It ended up being a great night, just a lot of laughs, reconnecting with people I hadn't seen in years. The whole vibe was positive and light, like stepping back into a simpler time. And then, enter Samantha. Samantha had been in my graduating class. Tall, gorgeous, the kind of beautiful that turned heads without her even trying. Back in school, we were friendly enough. Took a few classes together. But we weren't exactly tight. She was one of those effortlessly cool people everyone liked. After high school, she went on to become a YouTuber. And not just any YouTuber, a pretty big name, especially in the beauty world. I'd seen her pop up on some blog sites and videos online here and there. But it had been at least 8 years, maybe more, since we'd actually talked. So there I was at the reunion, catching up with everyone, when I realized Samantha wasn't there. But her best friend from back in the day was. And they were still really close, which honestly made me smile. It showed Samantha hadn't let fame change her. I wandered over to say hi to her friend, just to catch up and swap a few stories. While we were chatting, her friend kept grinning, like she had some secret she was dying to spill. And when I mentioned Samantha's name, that grin got even bigger. She leaned in a little and said, I know she's going to kill me for telling you this, but you know she's always had a crush on you, right? I laughed it off at first. I mean, come on. Samantha? Having a crush on me? It sounded completely ridiculous. Even back in high school, we weren't exactly moving in the same circles. We were friendly, sure, but that was about it. It never even crossed my mind that there could have been anything more. And now? She was a full-on YouTube celebrity. No way in hell, right? It was definitely flattering, thinking that someone like Samantha would ever find me attractive. But honestly, I figured it was just some old high school thing she'd probably forgotten about years ago. I told her friend as much, said I seriously doubted Samantha even remembered me. But she just shook her head and insisted. She told me that Samantha had actually asked her to check me out at the reunion, to see if I still looked as good as I did back in high school. And then she added, she's still into you. So if you're single and you're not scared off by a girl with a little baggage, you should definitely give it a shot. I spent the rest of the night turning the conversation over and over in my head. It completely blindsided me. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt damn good. After everything that had happened with Madison, it was like a breath of fresh air. Here was this woman, someone my ex would have laughed at me for even dreaming about, and she was supposedly into me. It made me realize just how meaningless Madison's insults had been. All those digs she made, trying to tear me down, they didn't mean a thing. It gave me a real shot of confidence, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Taking a chance. After that night, I decided, screw it, I was gonna take a chance. What did I have to lose? I found Samantha on Instagram and sent her a message. I also gave her friend a heads up that I'd reached out, just in case Samantha didn't check DMs from people she didn't already follow. I didn't want my message getting buried under a pile of spam. And then, I waited, and waited, and waited some more. 3 days went by, and still nothing. Honestly, by then, I had pretty much forgotten about it. I figured she was probably busy, or maybe her friend had exaggerated the whole thing. I wasn't too hung up on it. But then, out of the blue, she messaged me back. And her reply? It was really enthusiastic. She wrote, oh my gosh, Mark, it's been so long. With all those extra letters. Now, I don't know if it's true or just some internet myth, but I've heard that the more letters a woman uses when she texts you, the more excited she is. Either way, it felt like a good sign. We started messaging back and forth, catching up on just about everything. We talked about high school, the classes, the memories, the people we hadn't thought about in years. We swapped stories about where life had taken us since then. Jobs, family, random adventures. Everything. After a few days of texting, Samantha suggested we move over to FaceTime. She joked that she was tired of typing so much. I wasn't about to argue with that. I was thrilled. Pretty soon, FaceTiming became a daily thing. A deeper connection. Those video calls gave me a whole new glimpse into her world. She told me all about her blog, her travels, the highs and lows she'd been through. At the time, she was actually in Paris, sending me pictures from her trip, showing me the sights, the cafes, the streets. It was fascinating. And honestly, it was just amazing getting to see her light up while sharing all the things she loved. Watching her in her element, it made the connection feel real. It also gave us a chance to build something deeper, even with thousands of miles between us. After a few weeks of texting and FaceTiming almost every day, it honestly started to feel like we were dating. We hadn't come right out and labeled it yet, but it definitely felt like more than just friendship. So, I decided to be a little cheesy and just ask her straight up, "What are we?" She laughed and said we were really wonderful friends, but then she added that she wanted it to be more. I took that as my green light. So I asked her if she wanted to be my girlfriend. She said yes, without even a second's hesitation. And man, that feeling? That moment? It was incredible. The long-distance challenge. Of course, long distance wasn't exactly easy. She was off modeling and traveling the world, while I was back home grinding away at my regular job. I'd been in a long-distance relationship once before, years ago, and I hated it. It's tough, trying to stay close to someone when they're living an entirely different life halfway across the world. But this was different. This was Samantha. She already meant so much to me that I was willing to do whatever it took to make it work. So, I booked a flight to Paris. She was going to be there for a few more weeks working on a project, and I figured, what better time to see her and dive into her world for a little while. The trip that changed everything. And man, what a trip it was. Paris was everything people say it is: stunning, beautiful, unforgettable. But being there with Samantha? That made it something else entirely. It honestly felt like a dream come true. That trip showed me something important, that one bad relationship shouldn't make you give up on love. There are still good people out there. People who are worth the effort. Samantha even brought me along to one of her YouTube show tapings. I got to see her in her element, working the set, doing what she loved. I stood off to the side, cheering her on, snapping a few photos of my own. Watching her so passionate and alive about her work made me feel even more connected to her, like I wasn't just some spectator. I felt like I was part of her life. The Instagram mishap. So there I was in Paris, having the time of my life with Samantha. After her show wrapped up, I had all these great photos and figured I'd share a few on Instagram. But I didn't post them on my main feed, just threw them up in my close friend's story, thinking it was a small, trusted group who would see them. Here's where I screwed up. I completely forgot Madison was still on the close friends list. I barely ever use Instagram, so it never even crossed my mind to check. I had her blocked everywhere else, texts, phone, email, but not there. Big mistake. A few hours after I posted the photos, I got a message from her. Mind you, we hadn't spoken in almost a year at that point. The message said, "Who's that? Why are you playing groupie?" And she threw in a laughing emoji for good measure. I didn't take the bait. I just answered simply, "That's my girlfriend," and left it at that. No drama. No explanations. She didn't answer right away. I could see the little typing bubble pop up and disappear over and over for the next 15 minutes, like she kept starting a message, deleting it, and starting again. Finally, she sent something. Just a short, snarky reply. Sure. The final goodbye. That's when I decided to fire back. I told her she didn't have to believe me if she didn't want to. And then I added, "If you thought you were out of my league, then Samantha is out of this world." I also threw in a little jab. "And how's your guy from back then doing?" Yeah, I knew it would sting. She read it. I saw the read receipt, but she didn't say a word back. And right after that, I blocked her on Instagram. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it wasn't my proudest moment. But honestly, she earned it. I didn't want her having even the tiniest window into my life anymore. No more chances to poke at me, to try and get in my head. Still, I'm not gonna lie, a part of me was curious about what she thought when she read it. I'm human. I'll admit it. Happily ever after? And that, my friends, wraps up the story. It's definitely been a wild ride, that's for sure. But if I'm being honest, I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. Ever since that trip to Paris, Samantha and I have been going strong. I'm not gonna lie, popping the question before the year's up has been on my mind. Just keep that between us, all right? Samantha's been nothing short of a blessing. She's got this kindness about her, a great sense of humor. She's smart as a whip, and honestly, she's beautiful inside and out. Being with her makes me feel like the luckiest guy alive. Looking back, I'm actually grateful things didn't work out with Madison. If they had, I probably never would have crossed paths with Samantha. I know some folks might have their opinions about that, but honestly, I couldn't care less. I'm not about to let anyone's judgment ruin what I have with Samantha. She's incredible, and I couldn't be more excited about where we're headed. And hey, if things somehow fall apart, you're welcome to come back and tell me you saw it coming. But truthfully, I don't think you'll be hearing from me again. I'm planning to leave it right here. So that's my story. A story about betrayal, heartache, and finding real love and happiness when I least expected it.